Hi, I'm Jo VanEvery. I actually, I'm sort of, as Glenn was saying, I'm wearing several hats, all of them virtual. So I run my own business providing support to social science and humanities academics around various career things. That can be, I've helped people with preparing for job interviews and whatever. I've also helped with grant applications, time management. I have some clients that work with me just for regular check-ins so that they get their writing done, right? Helping with publishing strategies, all kinds of things. So in general, I wrap that all up and call that career coaching. If that term is, it may or may not be familiar to you. And I do most of that virtually over the phone and online. I also am one of the bloggers for the University Affairs Career Corner blog. And in that capacity, I was invited to come and talk to you about graduate careers and to do a CV clinic after this. I've given you a handout that just has a summary and some space to scribble notes, but right at the top is the URL for the full handout, because a lot of what I wanted to put on the handout had links to things. It seems a bit silly for me to type out all the URLs and then for you to type out all the URLs and possibly make transcription errors and whatever. So I've put the full handout on my website, and it's just jovanevery.ca/Congress11. So even if you lose the piece of paper, that should be easy to remember. And that gives you the full handout. There's a link to the slides, and then there's a bunch of extra resources, various things, including links to the Career Corner blog and where you can look for, get more information for different kinds of jobs, academic and otherwise, and all that kind of, general stuff, okay? Right, so right now, it's like you're on this boat, okay? You're on this boat, it's a nice boat, you know the boat, you've been on the boat for a really long time. You've been hanging around universities, even when you come to a new university like this, it's like, okay, it's on a hill, but basically you know the kinds of things you're gonna expect here, the kinds of people, there will be residences, there will be a sports center, there will be some place with lecture halls and seminar rooms and, departments of this, that, and the other, and there's some kind of structure to the thing that's vaguely familiar. You have a kind of sense of what goes on at one of these places. Places like this feel safe to you. You've been hanging around in them. You kind of know how they work. You're kind of maybe coming to the end of your graduate degree and you're looking out of the boat and you're sort of like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of other stuff out there. I don't know if I want to get off the boat. So this is part of the kind of issue that comes when we get to the end, right? Is that we don't really know what else is out there. And so it's kind of, maybe it's good, but maybe it's scary, and that's a little bit hard. On top of that, you've probably got at least one of these little guys sitting on your shoulder whispering things in your ear, okay? Sometimes it's actually like you've got about 27 of them hanging off your head and shouting at you. And they're all saying things like, well, that was a waste of money. Now you have more debt and no more options than you did after your first degree. Or, have you seen the state of the academic labor market? You'll never get a job as a prof and you're overqualified for anything else. Or the kind of, well, you studied English literature, what the hell did you expect? Okay. So have anybody got any of those little gremlin guys? Are they saying things I haven't mentioned? Any other kind of little gremlin talk? You have to remember that this is gremlin stuff. I did a version of this talk for a mixed group that included scientists, and I actually asked, because even out there in the media, they do that, well, you'd studied English literature, what did you expect thing, right? And actually I asked the scientists, and the scientists feel exactly the same way, right? I've talked to mathematicians. They don't know anything useful either. Really. Mathematicians don't know useful things. They know wonderful things, right? But what they know is no more useful than what you know about Derrida, okay? In that kind of sense. Yes, but on the other hand, they know useful things in the same way that you do, but they feel just like you do that they don't know anything useful, okay? And that there's nobody outside of academia that could possibly understand what it is that they know. Okay? So the other thing is that it isn't just these little imaginary green people sitting on your shoulder that are saying those things. This stuff turns up in the newspaper on a pretty regular basis. It turns up in family gatherings when you're talking to people. And it turns up when you meet people that, you know, you did your undergraduate degree with, and they're like, you're still in school, right? So it's real, this sort of thing, but it isn't all true. And just because some people don't really understand why you've done what you've done or what the heck good it could be, doesn't mean that it isn't useful, okay? The other thing is that there's also a bunch of gremlins and voices and real people telling you that there's only some things that you should do with your PhD. So you kind of feel like even thinking about getting off that boat and looking at those islands might be letting somebody down, or that you might be a failure if you decide to do that, right? Even no matter, you know, if you're thinking, well, I'm not even sure if I want to be an academic. I've been on this boat for a long time and I'm not quite sure there's a place for me to stay here. Sometimes that feels like, but I'm supposed to want to, and what am I supposed to do, right? So the first thing I want you to take away is that you're not alone. Whatever kind of trauma you're having about your career possibilities, you are not alone. There are other people that are thinking very similar things, that are feeling similar ways to you. In fact, one of the things that motivates what I do is that it makes me really, well, sometimes sad and sometimes just really, really, really angry that you can take this many smart people multiplied by all the other smart people around at this conference and around the country and make them feel useless. You guys are really smart people, and you have skills and passions, you have something to contribute, and there are times when you feel like, oh, there's nothing that I can do. And I think that that's sad, and I think you can't really make your best contribution if what you feel like is doing this, okay? So, let's imagine the daisy is the professor, right? You look at all those possibilities. We're switching from the sea. I'm mixing my metaphors terribly here, but you're moving from the sea. Instead of the sea, let's look at this big field. What we're staring at most of the time is this daisy. All the rest of this stuff is all blurry, right? So what we end up seeing is a daisy with this kind of green background. So it's like we're looking at this, we're a PhD student, we're thinking about, we're in graduate school, we're gonna be a professor, and there's just, everything else is just this green stuff, okay? And that's part of the problem, is that there's stuff other than, you could look at it, it's the focus. The reason the daisy stands out and the background looks green is just because of the way the photographer has focused the picture. So the same thing with your career. If you just focus on the professor, it's kind of hard to see anything else. And then when you only see like 3 daisies in the field and you see a whole bunch of you guys, you're like, oh my God, there's not enough daisies for all of us, okay? Now, I don't want to airbrush the daisy right out of the picture. I just want to switch. I like this better, okay? Instead of thinking of this daisy and this field of green, here I have a box of chocolates. They're all different, okay? Now, if we look at a box of chocolates, we don't think, oh, one of these is really good, and everybody wants that one. And anybody who wants the other one, well, there's something wrong with them, and they're just a loser, right? Okay? Like, nobody would think that there's something wrong with me that I don't like the hazelnut creams, right? I hate hazelnut creams. In fact, looking at a box of chocolate like that, I love the fact that other people like hazelnut creams, right? Because then it's like, well, good. It doesn't matter that I'm not going to eat the hazelnut creams because somebody else, that's the thing they really not like. And they maybe really hate that, you know, hard toffee with the chocolate around it. You know, like maybe it pulls their teeth out or their cavities or whatever, you know, whatever their fillings, you know. So it's great. We all have different choices. Some of us like some things, some of us like don't. Others. Also, in a box of chocolates, we can look at it and go, well, actually, there's like 4 or 5 things that I really like in there and could be all good options for me. So if you think about your career options this way, it takes away that idea of, you know, well, there's this one really good one and the rest of us just grass, and maybe I have to hang out and be grass, but, you know, so it takes that away and kind of says, well, you know, if I'm not going to be the one with the little gold foil wrapper, I could be this other one that looks kind of cool, or, you know, whatever it is, okay? So the shift to make is not, I have to decide whether I want to be an academic or whether I don't. It's really to say, I have all this knowledge and all these skills, and I can do all these things. And there's a whole bunch of options out there. And some of them are good options, some of them are bad options for you in particular, okay? For you, some of these, right? I don't like hazelnut creams. It's not a big problem, okay? So, right? Maybe you don't want to, you know, work for StatsCan. Not a problem, okay? Some people love working for StatsCan. So this is what you've got. You've got a whole bunch of options, and then you're kind of trying to focus in on some that are there. And the fact that you have options also means that if you look and say, oh, well, there's only 3 hazelnut creams, and I was thinking that was what I really wanted, but somebody else has got them all before I got there, that there are other things there that are almost as good or good in a different way. They're not a hazelnut cream, but, you know, there's something nice, okay? So being a professor might be a great option for you. Might be a terrible option for you. And I have met people who got those tenure track jobs and are miserable, okay? I've met people who have then left. They even got tenure and left, okay? They didn't want it, they didn't like it. Once they started doing it, they're like, oh my goodness, why was I like so worried about getting this job? It's driving me insane, okay? There are other people who have tenure track jobs who love it. Okay, I live with one, he's fabulous, he loves it. This is like a great job, he, you know, whatever, he'd never do anything else. So some people love it, some people don't like it, and that's all okay. It's not because there's something wrong with them. And you might be on either side of that. Also, there are other jobs out there that you might equally really like or not like. So it's really a matter of just figuring out what are all the options available, okay? So you're not alone in feeling worried about this stuff, and you have an important contribution to make. There are things in the chocolate box for you. There are numerous possibilities. Many of them are attractive. Some of them will be unattractive, and that's okay. There are smart, there are even brilliant people who are working in all kinds of places. Even at the height of university expansion and all that kind of stuff, when there were lots of tenure track jobs, 50% of all PhDs did not go on to academic careers. Those people are all working somewhere. They are not living in cardboard boxes under the bridge, okay? They're not, you know, at the homeless shelter. That's not what happens if you decide not to be an academic, okay? So I really want you to really take that on. There are lots of possibilities, okay? So, and the idea is that you want to make conscious choices. You don't want to feel like you're desperate and some other thing is controlling where you're going. You want to be able to take a little bit of control of what you're looking at and start to think about what those possibilities are, so you don't feel so much at the mercy of crazy labor market things.